Yo, Brent. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? This is your coach Brandon with Deconstructing Christianity. I will be your coach, your guide. Thank you for joining me today. Sorry for the late starts. Had to take care of a few things right quick. Had some technical issues, so now got those things squared away. We are in the saddle this afternoon, to talk about esoteric Christianity. I forgot one thing. Let me do this real quick. All right, here we go. So we give about 5 minutes for people to get on, and then we get started on our conversation. Today we're talking about esoteric Christianity. Tomorrow, on Wednesday, we are going to be talking about the pantheons of gods that the Bible talks about, and that the people believe actually existed. That how this is not a monotheistic religion. That's tomorrow morning at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. So we go live every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on Eastern Standard Time at noon. This is our new time. Life has made it such that we're doing this in the morning like we used to when we first got started. How you doing, Charles, Papa Lance? I want to thank all the people who are members on YouTube, those who support the channel that way, those who support the channel on Facebook as subscription holders, those who support the channel through that method. It's greatly appreciated. I never ask for things like that, but I greatly appreciate when people do it. So also, I'll make this announcement multiple times. If you look in the description of this video, what you're going to see, the first thing you're going to see is our meetup that we're having in San Antonio on October 31st through November 2nd. All you have to do is just get your reservation for the Drury Hotel. That is all that I ask. I don't receive anything from that, but just get your reservation at the Drury Hotel. You'll be provided with a free breakfast. You'll also have snacks during the day at the Drury, as well as a free supper. So it saves you cost on your food purchases for when you come. So I tried, we wanted to make it where you get here and it's as least expensive as possible. I know many people have already signed up already got their reservations. So I expect to see quite a few people that's going to be here. We're going to be meeting at the Japanese Tea Garden so Friday night, we're going to have a meet and greet at a local patio kind of place. It's a distillery, but it's a patio, a local distillery on that patio. We are going to, and it's free. We are going to be meeting at the Japanese Tea Garden. It's free. You just have to get there. It's about $15 Uber drive on that Saturday around noontime. And then we're going to be meeting up by the poolside of the Drury Hotel on that evening after supper. You don't have to get into the water. It's not about getting in the water. It's just about an area that we can gather. So, and then Sunday we'll see how we go, see how things are going. So, I look forward to seeing everybody there. The main thing is first just to get to know each other, spend some quality time with each other. I will do my best to spend as much time with each person individually and as I possibly can, and answer questions and have conversations. But I'm just one person. But I want other people to meet other people. So that's one of the big things about it. Now, if you if it's not something that you can do, then don't worry about it. But if you can make it there, that'd be great. So today we're going to be talking about esoteric Christianity. Esoteric Christianity. What's up, Prima and Dwayne and James? I see that we got our usual detractors here. I do know this. I know when Dwayne comes, I know he's going to hit some cigar spots with me. So I already know that one. So I don't want anybody thinking it's favoritism. It's just I know that Dwayne is a cigar smoker with me. So, isn't it always interesting how, like, when I talk about Christianity, I leave out most of the name calling and all that. I always find it interesting with people who think it's funny to do name calling or to do negative speech. I know I'm an overly optimistic person. I look at everything with the most optimism. I'm always hopeful for every situation. I'm just overly optimistic. And yes, I get disappointed a lot, especially when it comes to people. But I always find it interesting with people who thrive on the negative. Like you can't say something constructive without saying the negative. And then you think it's funny. That's the other part. They think it's funny and think that everybody else is missing the joke. Yeah, that's always interesting. Not talking about anybody specifically, just a straight thought that just went through my mind. And so today, can you ever do the show without you smoking? Sometimes I think it's all smoke. See what I'm saying? It's all the last part. Could have just asked a question and that'll be it. But nah, gotta get a little. If you don't like my smoking, then you can go to some other show. I can do it. I just choose not to because guess what? It's my show. So the answer is no. The answer is yes, but no. So today we're going to have a discussion for about an hour or two. I know how you guys are. We'll be on subject matter for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, and then y'all will detract into every other direction. So we're going to try to talk about this. So who already here knows, and this is a trick question, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you it's a trick question, what it is. All right, Dwayne says he wants to do is meet other people. I know this is a trick question, but what is esoteric Christianity? Who think they know what esoteric Christianity is? I really want to know because I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. If you just research it, you're going to find so many variations, very generalized descriptions, but no one can. The term esoteric Christianity, if you just break it down in its basic thoughts, basic definitions, I should say, you got Christianity. We know what that is. You are a believer in Jesus as the Christ. That's Christianity. No matter people who try to say that they're spiritual and they don't follow religion, they're not Christian because the first Christian was used as a slur, and the first Christians wasn't used until Antioch, and the first people were Hebrews, and so on and so forth. And they try to separate themselves from the religion. If you are a follower of the Jesus Christ of the Bible, you are a Christian. You try to push yourself away from it if you want to, but you're a Christian. So, a follower of Jesus of the Bible. Christian. Esoteric. Esoteric means inner or further inside knowledge, seeing beyond the veil, understanding things that the average person would not understand, being in a select group of people who have discovered mysteries within a text or within a group or teaching that is beyond what everybody else has. This is esoteric Christianity. So take that definition of esoteric and Christianity. Someone who believes in Jesus but thinks that they are on a higher scale that they see different information that goes deeper than what everybody else says. Exactly, Ebony. Hidden knowledge. Believing that they have discovered some level of hidden knowledge within the book, the understanding. Angela, this is one of the things that an esoteric Christian would say. God is not a religion. But without the religion, you have no God. You understand what I'm saying? The religion was created based on the worship of a God. Now, what you get is disenfranchised people if you that's the thing I'm going to talk about. So what you have is you have a situation where people they've added in and read or have read other texts from other religious groups, from other civilizations or cultures. They see some similarities. And then when they see those similarities, they go and grab hold of the ideas from that culture and implement them into their own religious teachings. So one example of that is the idea of, you all have heard, having the Christ mind. In most accounts, when someone says you have to have the Christ mind, or they will say you have to have the mind of Christ, those are two actually very different things if the people who are listening to it are hearing it. To say that you have to have the mind of Christ, or to say you have the Christ mind. The Christ mind is often thought about as you seeing the world from a perspective of Godhood, you obtaining a consciousness of higher vibration, where you are above the basic ideas and attitudes of man, and you see how the universe functions under the idea of Yahweh, Jehovah, the God of the Bible. Whereas, and that's having a Christ mind. But when you have the mind of Christ, which is what Paul was talking about in Ephesians and in First Chronicles, what Paul was actually talking about was having a personality and attitude to act like the Jesus character in the book, to be humble, to be sacrificial to your community. It's more of actions and attitude to have the mind of Christ as the Bible dictates it. But the esoteric Christian sees the same passage and says, no, it's got to be a higher consciousness that Christ was existing on, and that is having the Christ mind. Where has that been said before? Well, 500 years ago, you had a dude named Siddhartha Gautama. He became the Buddha. And one of his teachings is that when you fulfill the Eightfold Path, you will attain the Buddha mind, which is the higher conscious mind that reaches and vibrates much higher than the physical world exists. So those ideas of the Christ mind that the esoterics are teaching really stem from them understanding the Buddhist mind. That's why even on some, I've seen some chakra charts that people create. And when they go above the crown, then about 2 levels up, they got the Christ mind. And then about 2 levels above that, they have the Buddha mind. Because they're taking from the Eastern traditions. And most of your esoteric Christianity takes from the Eastern traditions. And they implement it into their Christianity, where they can find parts that they say, oh yeah, this looks like something, like what they said over there. and look like something that most people won't recognize. I was taught that the Bible is used literally, dispensary, and it is. It's used in all those formats. Now, those who are the metaphoric people are the ones who think that they are seeing. They can be categorized into the esoterics, right? Oh, people think they have you over barrel. He always loses in any debate. Name any esoteric denomination. The New Age movement, the Theosophy Society. There you go. Ah. Oh, he's trying to say it again. The New Age movement, the Theosophy Society. It's interesting when people and see this. That's just I just don't like what Coach Green says. So I gotta say something different. I didn't do any research before I made my statement. I just want to make my statement because I really don't have anything to say. And this is just I just don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Ain't got nothing to do with my life. Why do people think Isaiah is about Jesus when it's about Israel? Because the writers of the Bible, the creators of the Jesus of the Bible, knew what Isaiah said, and they wrote Jesus to somewhat fit. So back to the conversation. We're gonna talk about this. They're trying to get me off subject. You gotta give at least 30 minutes, man. 30 minutes to the subject matter. Okay. So we got the idea. So most of this stuff stems from other people's cultures, religion, and one of the biggest groups that the esoterics Christians pull from is the Kemetic understanding of Hermetism, which then was learned by the Greeks, which it was alchemy, it was the teachings of Tahuti that became the Hermes, the teachings of Hermes, which became the Hermetics, which was rediscovered by uh, the Italians in around, was it 1400 CE, which then began the Renaissance movement. During that time frame, the Rosicrucians grew into understanding her and teaching Hermetics. Before that, in the medieval time, you had the Cathars. And then later on, you got your in the 19th and 20th century, the Theosophy societies, and then the New Age movements that began all the way up until today with some of even your non-denominational churches are teaching a lot of the New Age movement types of mindsets. So this has been an outcropping that has begun, and it began very early in the history of Christianity with Gnosticism, pulling from the Hermetic teachings. This is why about 10 years ago, I used to say 8, but it's actually been 10. 10 years ago, I did a video, one of the first videos I ever did on YouTube concerning religion. So it was about 15 years ago, where I was telling pastors, hey, if you better start talking about vibration and energy, or you're going to start losing your people. And when you hear pastors today, you hear a lot of them talking about vibration and energy. Well, where are they getting these ideas from? Those are Hermetic terms. Those are Hermetic ideas. And they will find passages in the Bible that could fit. And passages that you were never taught before that had these things. Right? The easiest version of understanding of this is to read the Kabbalion. But there was something that I noticed when I was very young. When I was very young, I noticed this. How many of you guys remember the story of the woman with an issue of blood? This is I need y'all to respond to this. How many of y'all remember being taught about the woman? I'm gonna give you two questions in it so you can respond all at one time and it won't take as long. How many of y'all remember were taught the story of the woman of issue of blood? And did they ever talk about energy or vibration or frequency within their story? Will says he don't remember. So you remember, so the story of the woman with the issue of blood is that Jesus was walking, a whole crowd had gathered around him, and this woman who had an issue of blood, basically been on her period for like 7 years or so, she came and she fought her way through the crowd, and when she finally got to Jesus, uh, she touched the hem of his cloak. I know you guys have heard that. She touched the hem of his cloak, and because she only touched the hem, she was healed. And Jesus turned to her as the disciples were trying to get her away, and they were like, and he was like, by your faith, you have been healed. How many of y'all remember any aspect of that? I remember he touched the hem of the garden, he said, and he felt the virtue leave. Where that goes? Oh, leave his body. There it goes. I heard the song "Hem of His Garment" because I see. Okay, I understand. Not knowing, believing in this witchcraft. I may remember that one. I don't know about the blood on the sheets, which is that's in Judges, uh, because she was low frequency. Jesus is a kiss. Okay, so you guys remember some of this, at different aspects of it. But here's the thing. I've asked this question to Christians over and over again who do remember the story, being hearing it in church, hearing the song, people saying, talking about it. But in the 70s, in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, nobody ever talked about frequency, energy, and vibration. And I used to go at pastors saying, look, if Jesus, the first problem thing that I noticed, Jesus said he felt the power go out of him. I know somebody said virtue, but the power go out of him. If God must be God at all times, so how can he ever lose power? How can power leave him? And I had some pastors say that, oh, he was instantly refilled. God would never need a refilling. He's not a truck. He doesn't pull up to the gas station. Why would he need to be refilled? The power should never leave, right? But he felt the power go out of him. And then as I walked away from Christianity, but even before that, now I had already been studying hermeneutics and everything. That story sounds a hell of a lot like frequency and vibration and energy transmutation. And then when he told her you're healed by your faith, you are healed. That sounds a hell of a lot like the uh, the the law of mentalism. So if you were to take that story, and if you have read the Kabbalion, then the woman used the law of mentalism to be able to envision a healing that she desired. She was the causational act to increase her vibration to be able to reach out and energy transmutate from Jesus, so that with the masculine and the feminine energy being combined, Jesus representing the masculine, she representing the feminine, she was able to vibrate high enough so that she moved up the pole of being healed. That is what esoteric Christianity does. It takes a story like that, and it takes hermeticism, the hermetic teachings, and it smashes it in there together. to make people say, well, I know you read the story and just by your faith you're healed, but you got to understand that in order for you to get that healing from Jesus, you got to first have the esoteric understanding, the deeper meaning of knowing how mentalism works, because that woman's mind was so strong that, you know what I'm saying, and you got to get into all that and talk about how her mind was so strong that she understood the vibrational pattern of the healing forces of Jesus. See, that's why most people don't get healed, because they pray, but they don't understand the frequency by which Jesus heals at. You see, the earth heals at 532 hertz, and you got to get into the 532 hertz of healing frequency of the universe in order for you to be healed. When the true thing about it is you don't need Jesus for none of that. Does the earth vibrate at 532 megahertz when it's healing something, and vibrates at 428 when it's normal, when everything is healthy? Yes. Does Jesus have anything to do with that? No. Does Buddha have anything to do with that? No. Does Allah have anything to do with that? No. They vibrate at those frequencies. That's just natural law. That's just physics. That's just how it works. Jesus ain't got nothing to do with it, but a person takes that natural law and they implement it into their creative thoughts, into their book, their religion, their teaching, and now they think that they found some deeper understanding that can only be found in Jesus. Too bad that story wasn't true. No, it wasn't. There's no proof of a woman with an issue of blood for 7 years that was healed by Jesus. So, an esoteric Christian is really just a person who wants to feel special. They want to feel special. They want to feel like they're part of a special group of people who have attained higher knowledge and other people won't be able to see it. They're the ones that are easily fall into the conspiracy theories. They think that everybody else, there's an arrogance that is in their insecurity, that they think they're above everybody because they're afraid of everybody. But they absolutely have there's no inner knowledge that they have that is beyond anything, because it's corrupted by the teachings of Christianity. Because at the end of the day, you cannot have inner knowledge with Christianity. There is absolutely no way to grow inward and you're Christian, because everything in Christianity is an outward look. You are unworthy of the kingdom of God. If you follow the esoteric teachings, you manifest your own self within your own self by looking inside yourself, the kingdom of God. So if they're telling you you're unworthy, but you need Jesus, which is outward, you need the God, which is outward, you're tempted by the devil, which is outward. But in esoteric teachings, everything is inside. The devil is inside, because it's you, your own mind, your own manifestation, your own creations, your own fears, your own guilt, your own shame, your own insecurities. That's all inside. Your worth is drummed up on the inside. So it's an impossibility. To be Christian and be esoteric. What is it that called? It's an oxymoron for the morons. I ain't been drinking my coffee. Look, I don't know if my wife is on here right now, but baby, that's some good coffee. Oh, I know she's not on here yet. That's some good coffee. So do you guys think that somebody can be esoteric and be Christian at the same time? Can you be esoteric in any of these religions at the same time? There's only one religion that actually tells you to look inward. Well, two. Well, one, because the other one is a philosophy. All others are philosophies. There's only one that will qualify somewhat as a religion that tells you to look inward. Exactly. You cannot. Nope. Exactly, Ebony. You cannot. Now, Ebony, I'm gonna say, I see your allegory statement. The writers of the Bible, they took these stories literally. They took it all literally. James said you can, yes, you can. You can be esoteric and be Christian. Okay. You can't. There's absolutely no way you can look inward and outward. Because I would sure love for James, if y'all asking James to prove it or for James to understand his own book, I think Noble and Sheila are talking to him. You're not going to get anywhere with that. That's that's like asking an orange to produce an apple tree. It's just not going to happen. Rupert says Christ was esoteric. No, he wasn't. Let me give you one example of your Christ not being esoteric. That Jesus character of the Bible was not esoteric. The Jesus character of the Bible, when he in Matthew, when he was dealing with a bunch of people and he was talking to the people, and the Pharisees and Sadducees were standing there, and he told the people, he said, "Hey, you see those Pharisees and Sadducees? They teach you. They stand on the throne of Moses. They teach you the laws and the commandments of God. You should listen to what they teach, do what they say that they teach. So, meaning follow the laws, follow the commandments of what Moses gave in Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. But then he told them, don't do what those guys do because they don't act accordingly. So Jesus was saying, he wasn't saying nothing esoteric. He was saying, hey, you need to follow the same shit that Moses said back in the day. So you need to make sure that, hey, if somebody got leprosy, they got to stand outside the tent, outside the city. If a young girl is SA'd and she's not betrothed to somebody, then somebody pay a 50 piece of silver. Then, the person paid 50 pieces of silver and then she got to marry that dude. Child slavery is okay. Jesus was not esoteric at all. Prove that he was esoteric. Now, young Paola brings up a point that I was going to get to. The Gospel of Thomas, which some is debatable whether I think it's Gnostic. I think it's a Gnostic writing. But there are some scholars, a lot of scholars don't think it's a Gnostic writing. There's a debate about that. But I think it's a Gnostic writing. Was esoteric and taught looking within? Yes. But the Gospel of Thomas is not the Jesus of the Bible. Because the Jesus of the Bible don't teach what the Gospel of Thomas teaches. Think about the actual esoteric teachings. Young Paola, I know you've read the Gospel of Thomas, but if you think about some of the teachings in there, although there are some similar teachings. I'll give you an example. The second saying, which is one of my favorite sayings out of the Gospel of Thomas. Seeking ye shall find. But now you've seen that in the other book in Mark, seeking ye shall find. But in Thomas, he says, seeking ye shall find. And when you find, you will be disturbed. After you have been disturbed, you will then marvel. You will then marvel and reign over all. So not look inside yourself and you will find. when you do find it, it will be disturbing because of the inner work that you have to do. Once you have gotten over your disturbance, you will then marvel at all that you see and all that you understand of yourself and the world around you. And then you will reign over all, man. You reign over all of your emotional states, reign over your mind, reign over you. Doesn't mean you're going to reign over other people, although you will be able to heavily influence other people. So but the Jesus of the Bible don't teach that, payola. I know you're young, payola, but I just like payola. But they don't. So I'm with you. But that ain't the Jesus of the Bible. That ain't the Jesus of Christianity. And just as no one can agree within the regular versions of Christianity, these jokers who are calling themselves esoteric Christians can't agree with each other either. Marcus said that he thinks the Bible is a bunch of fables, mythology, violence, conquest, but that it has kernels of wisdom. Let me ask you a question. If I told you I made you a chocolate chip cookie, but I put some cow shit in it, you gonna eat it? I made you a chocolate chip cookie, but I put some poison in it, you still gonna eat it? I don't even, and I'm not trying to be funny. What I'm saying is, why even bother with trying to sift through the bullshit to get to the kernel, you know? And you know that saying that it has a kernel of wisdom, it doesn't just mean like a kernel off a piece of corn on a cob, because when you take it after you eat corn, and corn doesn't digest in your system, is the kernels be in the shit. So you got to sift through the shit to get a kernel. Now I don't know if that's actually where it comes from. That's where it's come from in my mind. Well, the sad part about it, Rupert, is that you first got to prove that the Jesus of the Bible and the apostles actually existed. And as of right now, they don't exist. There's more evidence they didn't exist, that they are all literary characters. So when you take it from a literary character standpoint, you have to think about who were the writers of it, and what was the economic and the political environment by which it was written in during the time frame of Rome under Vespasian. Right. The Jesus of the Bible doesn't. He teaches them how to pray. The Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, he laughs at their prayers and their rituals. Tells them, "Do not do what you hate." When they asked about praying and fasting, Christianity tells you that your heart is desperately wicked and deceitful, and who can know it exactly? It is. It's like it's a downer. You are such a unworthy piece of nothingness in Christianity. So how can you ever be considered esoteric, deeper meaning, enlightened, vibratory? That doesn't exist in Christianity. And the mustard seed, and that's a lot. A mustard seed is not even the tiniest seed. It wasn't even the tiniest seed in that area of the world at that time. Right? So you don't even have the information right. Okay, there is no separation between Christ and Jesus. There's no separation. And let me go ahead before you even respond to it. There's no separation between Jesus and Yeshua. That's just transliteration. So there. What is your thoughts on if Jesus ever spoke in parables within the Bible. There are some verses that people state he spoke in parables. I mean, he did speak in parables. He, told stories. Speaking in storytelling format to convey a message. I mean, there are some stories like that, like the prodigal son and the rich man who was trying to have a dinner party. But that's nothing special, since that was a form of teaching and speech held throughout our known understanding. Yes, there is the real one and the one. Who's the real Christ, Rupert? Who's the real Christ? What is your proof of the real Christ? Like, who is he? Where is the information that would prove the real Christ existed, walked on the earth, is a person who was God? Speaking in parables don't make you esoteric. That doesn't make you, if that's the case, then Aesop, would you consider Aesop fables to be esoteric? Because basically that's all the Jesus character of the Bible did as far as the speaking in parables. He Aesop fabled those people. So would you consider Aesop fable? And I know you're making jokes about it, but some Christians would literally say this, Hurricane. Is Aesop fables esoteric? Okay, no. The Council of Nicaea did not create Jesus. Jesus was already created long before the Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea, all they did was organize Christianity under the Roman, what would become the Roman Orthodox, which would become Catholicism later on, and then agree on the Trinity. They didn't create Jesus at the Council of Nicaea. The Jesus character was created in around 70 AD with the Flavians under the guide of Josephus and um, Philo of Alexander. But he was not created at the, there's too much information before that about the Jesus character before the Council of Nicaea. Do you cons? Is that your Christ? Who's your Christ? I asked a simple question. You said that the real Christ. Who's the real Christ? I don't know what do you cons mean. I can tell you, but the way you are acting, you might not believe. So what you're telling me is that you can only tell a person who the real Christ is if they are already in a position that they're going to accept whatever you say to be true. But if they're not in a position that is going to, for them to accept whatever you say to be true, you can't tell them. Can somebody make that make sense to me? Because that don't make no sense to me. And I mean to use a double negative. Did I use double negative? But if I didn't, I should use a double negative. But that don't make no sense not now in time. That's the thing, that was a quadruple negative. That's old Georgia talk right there. That don't make no difference not now in times. Never. boy, I tell you. I'm sorry. I need some coffee for that one. See, don't worry about it, VB. When people like to jump around like that, what that tells me is that they to me, and I could be wrong, but they are unsure of their information. They are fragile in its ability, in their own mindset, and its ability to be challenged. And so they would rather not say, because they know that they have, a shaky defense on it. Because if now and then they don't have the power to just say, I don't know, or this is what I think, or something like that. Okay? See what I'm saying? This is when I don't know how to express it. I don't know what it is. I can't defend it. So I rather just say, oh, you just have to read the Bible and just open your eyes and be open to it. And the Holy Spirit will lead you to the true Christ. And that's and I can't tell you who it is. It's a journey you have to find on your own. And, that kind of thing. Nah, man. No. No. Yeah, and that's how the esoteric people would do you as well. I mean, not only would the regular Christians do you that way, but the esoteric ones will do you that way as well. Oh, you got to sit and remember when Jesus said, meditate on the word. You got to meditate on the Bible, but you ain't gonna meditate what the Bible meant by meditate on the word. Just constantly think about what the teachings are, or what the word is saying. But they will then translate that into you sitting in the more of a Buddhist Hindu meditation, and then it's just gonna come to you, the energy. But that's why, I give them a shot, I give them a chance, but most oftentimes they seem to fail. And this is very plausible. If you read the Bible, you will come to 40,000 plus conclusions because they got 40,000 plus denominations. Interesting. We have to see. We have to study, not just read. What you don't understand is that the overwhelming majority of us who have deconstructed from the Bible got that way through study. But I wasn't going to say this, but now I am. Rupert, you showed me your hand in the comment that you made on one of my videos earlier today, when you talked about how the Bible has been all these mixtures and people have done all this stuff to it, but the Ethiopian Bible, that has the most original documents and haven't been, and they were never conquered or colonized. And I responded by telling you failed to mention that the Ethiopians were mentally colonized by Frumentius, who was from the Orthodox Roman Church in Alexandria, Egypt, who went in 330 and converted King Azana, and then King Azana forced the Aksum Empire into converting into Christianity. So they may not have been colonized physically, but they were colonized mentally. And you seem to left that part out of your studies, or you knew that but chose to ignore that because you already have a narrative that you want to facilitate, and then you want that narrative to be true, and so you have to only look at the information that follows that narrative. This is why there are 11 different denominations. This is why there are all these different religions. This is why even in esoteric Christianity, It can go along the lines of race, it can go along the line of gender or nationality and all these other directions. Simply because people, and I'm gonna give you the esoteric. I'm gonna give you the esoteric. It is all because people are still trying to view spiritualism on a low vibrational mental plane. And when you view spiritualism on a low vibrational mental plane, then it is not the spiritualism that is overwhelming you and leading you and guiding you. And so when you read your Bible and your low vibrational mentality is race oriented, because that would seem to be what you were indicating with the whole Ethiopian thing, then you you are viewing this through that low vibration, like race exists, because race don't exist. So race don't matter when it comes to true spirituality. But you're on that low vibrational plane, so that's how you see it. That's how you follow it. It doesn't work that way. If you were esoteric in your thought, seeing the hidden message, seeing the inner, deeper thought, you'd recognize race don't matter. You'd recognize that colonization can happen mentally and physically, and that they still didn't, the version of Christianity that the Ethiopians adopted was still a Romanized version of Christianity, no matter what, no matter how you slice it. And they still walked away from their ancestral religion to follow a Mediterranean religion. And the only reason they did it is because King Ixana saw how Christianity was on the rise and being backed by Rome, and he wanted better trade relations. So it was all about the money. So you get, when you see the deeper meaning, you get deeper in it, and then clarity comes. And I know I missed some of y'all comments. I don't read all capped comments, just for the gentleman who wrote that. I didn't read your, no, I didn't read your response to whatever, to what I wrote. I get what you're saying, Coach, and why I try to study the whole Bible to gain certain hidden wisdom when the book is used to control you. But I do think that I don't think there's any problem in studying all religions. No, I mean, I studied all religions. I can't fault anybody for studying all religions. And I can't say all, because all is a finite term. But I studied many, many religions, and many ancient religions especially. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? For a while, I studied Islam, I studied Buddhism, Hinduism, different variations of Christianity were studied, and then the Tao, which I do like the Tao, which is not a religion, it's more philosophy, but I do love the Tao. The Tao doesn't ask you to worship the way, just to get in the frequency, the vibration of the way, the flow of the way. But there's nothing wrong with studying all of those. So I guess I should have been more specific for people who stayed believing in those religions in order to gain those, to keep those little kernels, them little nuggets, that the the kernels of the kernels of corn that don't turn into shit. You're right, Ebony. For when I was going on and on, people's ego will keep them from ever reaching levels of enlightenment. like reaching levels of enlightenment is incredibly difficult. And I am reaching. I still got levels I ain't even touched yet. Yes, the secret books of John and God is a maniac in that one. Now that's a Gnostic book for sure. Could you go over the creation of Christ narrative, please? You mean like the Gospel of Mark, Luke, Mark, Matthew, and Luke and John? Those were created by the Flavians as a way because they need to create a docile version of Judaism. So after they captured Judea in 70 AD or CE, they created the Jesus story through the Flavian dynasty. And they used a lot of the Old Testament because they had Josephus being was at the primary, and they created this narrative for these letters of Paul. And as it became a religion, they sent out people to teach this thing, and so that the Jews would convert because they were creating revolutions they was disturbing the balance of power in the Roman Empire. So they needed the Jewish religion to stop waiting for a Messiah, and so they gave them a passive Messiah. Because the job of the Roman emperor is to keep the empire and grow the empire. And all these Jewish revolts were disturbing the empire, especially when they're happening in Alexandria, Egypt, which is important because that's where the trade routes goes into the Nile River Valley, also near the Red Sea, and the trade routes there. And then in Judea, the trade routes into the east, into what is now modern day Pakistan and those areas. So they needed the Jewish people to stop fussing and fighting because they messing up the money and the power. So they created this docile version. I hope that's enough. This is why when you read Josephus's writing, you'll see when you read about there's that 3 or 4 different Yeshuas, and each one has attributes that you find in the Jesus character. Like some of their stories end up in the Jesus, like flipping of the tables and the brother named James and being on trial by a governor. Those things are part of it. Beyond that, you just need to add in the Old Testament things that make the people think that this is the Messiah. That's where the Isaiah question that somebody asked earlier comes into play, where you can bring that in so that they can think that this is the Messiah. But also give them their own stuff. Tell them that they still need to follow the laws of their Judaism. Let's see. I wouldn't necessarily. Okay, books help. Books help. You just got to be able to, books help. But you're right. It comes from the journey within. There's not enough. I don't think there's enough availability of people at higher enlightened states to help people. So that's why I will say books help. And then some of the people, like some of these jokers, they go to the Buddhist ashrams and they stay there for the required 3 years, and they know that they can come out of there and make some good money. And so they like these dumb Westerners. Dress in some robe, put some beads around my neck, and sit there and be like, "Oh, life is like a butterfly. As the butterfly flies, if it goes under too much heat, the butterfly will land and die from dehydration. Therefore, you must stay in the shade until the heat passes." Only because my wife saw a dead butterfly because it looked like he died of heat exhaustion. But they know they can make money off people in the West. But I don't know. I always just say, be careful of the shaman, the monk, the whatever that you're looking for enlightenment. There are some books that are helpful, and then there are just things you can do for yourself, right? And not everything that brings enlightenment comes from some type of spirituality or spiritual book. There's a process that I'm going through right now. It doesn't come from a spiritual book at all. It actually, I was taught it when I was in the Marine Corps, right? So I'm making another major financial decision here in the next few weeks, which is why I changed the time frame of the channel. And I'm gonna flash this real quick. I want anybody to pause and see what I wrote. I don't care. But I basically made a timeline of different decisions I've made, of the major decisions that I've made financially that turned out to be the wrong decision. What were the common themes, and what is the solution to avoid those common themes? What basically the polar opposite of the common themes. So I made a timeline from 1990. That was when I was first a grown man on my own, up to 2021, and every major financial decision that was made, where I was, what type of work I was doing, or what involved, who was involved in the decisions, and what was the decisions, and why did I make those decisions, to see more inside myself. I didn't make this so I can blame other people and say, oh, I did this decision. My money went down during this time frame because of that person or the economy, or no. Why did I make these decisions? What was in me at the time frame, and is it in me still now, that would cause me to make similar decisions? It's an inward look. It didn't come from a spiritual book. This came from, it's actually a combination of the Marine Corps and a financial book that I read back then. So, one of my favorite authors, and I always read the Emperor's Handbook, sorry. But Marcus Aurelius's writing, Stoicism is an amazing thing. Stoicism helps you get out of your own emotional way. Get out of your own emotional way. The Tao is one of my favorite books. And what's the first thing in the Tao? The moment you give the way a name, it is no longer the way. The moment you put the way in a book, it is no longer the way. So basically, the moment you give what you may call a creator or God, a title, a name, you put it in a book, you've minimized it to the point where it cannot be the all of all creations. I've heard of this. I want to try that. You stay at a Buddhist resort and you stay there for free, but you do some work while you're there. And that's another thing. Early Native Americans proved that they were more enlightened than Christians who colonized them, and they were. They lived in the flow of nature. Like, we are so out of sync with nature that this is why we get caught up in natural disasters. I told my wife, if we are ever sitting at home and we see all the birds are flying north and it's just flocks and flocks just going north, we getting in the car. We ain't waiting on the news. You don't wait for the news to tell me shit. All the birds know what's going on. I'm going with the birds. I'm rolling out with the birds. They going west, I'm going west. They going east, I'm going east. I just hope they don't ever go south, because I only got about 2 hours of driving south, then I hit water. But I'm going south. Well, we can go 4 hours. We can go down that way. That's kind of like southwest. We're going out. Earl Nightingale, one of my favorites. Alan Watts, I just listened to him this morning. Seasonal work have at Buddhism. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. When you were in tech school in the military, did the hell no. We had to do a in the Marine Corps back then. All you had to do a correspondence course and pass that correspondence for a course. That was the first time I ever did anything in finances. I didn't know shit about finances until then. Yeah, and people do want to go the easy route, and Christianity is such an easy route. Think about it. In Christianity, all you have to do is believe in Jesus. Now, it tells you that you need to follow, you should become a new creature. Your work should, your fruits of your labor should demonstrate that you are a true believer and all this sort of thing. But most people, most Christians, oh yeah, all you gotta do is just believe, because that's what Paul told them. That's what the writings of Paul say. You just gotta believe. But Christianity is like the easiest religion in the world. And nature can teach you so many things. I oftentimes just stare at a tree or grass or animals and watch animals and just observe and see what downloads come just from observing animals. I just don't have time. I realize that the two channels that I do give my time to, which is this one and the relationship channel, that to give time to a comic book and comic book entertainment channel and the basketball channel, I just don't have time. Because I also have to do the cigar channel as well. And now I have to ramp up the cigar channel because I'm making a decision that puts me back into the cigar business more so than I am now. So I just don't have time. I want to, but I just don't have time. They confuse the language. All is frequency. All is frequency. And people don't. Those in power will never freely give up power. It has to be taken. The cigar channel is called Smoking Phoenix. I did change that background. It is because I was going to use the cigar channel to be it was going to be Stogies and Kicks, Stogies and Hoops, but I think I changed it back to the Smoking Phoenix. Did I change it on YouTube? I think I was supposed to change it, but I didn't change it. Yeah, it's Smoking Phoenix Cigars. Yeah, Smoking Phoenix Cigars. And it's like the word Phoenix. Even though that name is going to change, I got to make sure I can do what I want to do, but it'll still have Phoenix in it. But yeah, chilling at waterfronts, and water is always a great place to like connect. And then just grounding is a great thing to do. Um, yeah, Smoking Phoenix. Smoking Phoenix. I would like to, but I got some back child support I got to finish paying off before I can get my passport again. And then I will be going to South America and the Caribbean to check out some cigars and create some more blends. I saw some verses. I don't remember each one of those. I don't remember those verses offhand, but there are many variations of Christianity that believes that Jesus wasn't, that he didn't die on the cross, that he was actually healed. one of the things, I don't know if it's in any of those verses, but I want you to think about the fact that when they came to anoint his body or bring his body down from the cross, that they bathed him in myrrh. Myrrh is used to heal people. Why would they put healing ointments on his body if he was supposedly dead? Interesting. Christianity has purpose for very basic enlightenment. Anyone who stops there will be involved. It will be, I will give it that it has some very, very, very basic, but it contradicts its own self in its enlightenment. You are correct, Coach. I'm having that same problem reasoning with a pastor who happens to be my brother. Happens to be my brother. He is saying all people have to do is believe. I'm telling him that they have to do the work. Yeah. And I don't know where it is in Matthew where it talks about where he was telling them that y'all need to follow the commandments. I mean, there's the part that most people like to hinge on that he came to not take one tittle from the law. But there was another one where it was in Matthew where does Jesus tell the people to follow the laws that the Pharisees teach? So Matthew 23, yes. So hit your brother with Matthew 23 verses 1 through 3. Matter of fact, let's go take a look at that. Can we? Matthew 23 RSV. I don't want the RSV. I want the updated RSV. For anybody who ever asked, I use the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition. It is the most accurate based on the more ancient documents. Because King James sucks. So it starts and says, then said Jesus to the crowd and to his disciples, the scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. So practice and observe whatever they tell you, but not. So practice. I was trying to sound all great and everything. So practice and observe whatever they tell you, but not what they do, for they preach, but do not practice. They bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with their fingers. So basically, Jesus is cussing these jokers out. Hit your brother with that one, because he's saying, Jesus is telling the people, now don't let them get away with, oh, but see, after the sacrifice, we on the new covenant. The new covenant should be the things that Jesus was teaching. And if Jesus was teaching that you got to keep doing the laws of Moses, then the laws of Moses are part of the new covenant. But the laws of Moses say that you got to sacrifice some animals. You see what I'm saying? I know I missed a lot of y'all comments because I was doing that part, but yeah. Hit him with that. I'm always grounded. I don't wear foot coffins. When you walk around barefoot, you're not one of those people who cut out the soles of your shoes and then you walk around truly barefoot, but people can't tell that you're walking around barefoot. What? Coach, I've read that the New Testament is older than the Old Testament. Do you agree? No. 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 There's too much evidence of the parts of the Old Testament that the Old Testament probably got started being written in around 800 BCE. And no. No, I don't think that the Old Testament is over. I mean, the Old Testament is newer than the New Testament. They utilize the Old Testament to write the New Testament. Oh, you walk around truly barefoot. Okay. Hey man, how you get around with going to restaurants and you must not go to restaurants and stores? Because let me just put it this way: when I own the popcorn shop and you walk in barefoot, I'm like, man, you gotta get out. Can't be walking around here barefoot. You trying to give me some health code violations? You trying to get me shut down? I got a perfect 100 up there, especially where my shop was, and I oftentimes had people who worked at the health department would come there to buy popcorn. I'd be like, nah, bro. You gotta, I'm just wondering how you do that, how you live, how that works. Oh, you choose outdoor dining. Okay. All right. I was just curiosity, man. Just curious. Just curious. You know, no shade, just curious. I don't think I trust walking around America like that. You could just be throwing glass and shit on the street. I'll have to take note of those verses and see, because I can't remember offhand. Nah, it ain't nothing to think. Uh, he's in Medellin. He's in Colombia. He did a tour of his apartment this morning. So they're in Colombia. The boys didn't go though, or at least they might be coming later. So I'm pretty sure I'll have a conversation with him within this week. But the boys didn't go. Not that I'm gonna tell you if why the boys went or didn't go, because I don't work that way. You have to just tell me yourself. If for those who don't know, we did a show with Kevin Wesley about a month ago, and what Dwayne is referring to, and Kevin Wesley is the one who got me all up on this shit. It's his fault. So if any of y'all are mad at me for being on here and talking, it's Kevin's fault. My shit was private before Kevin. Uh, but yeah, him and his family said to hell with America. They moved to Medellin, Colombia. Uh, and they got some big plans. Some big plans. You know, they're renting a space right now, and they will be buying some land as soon as they can and building a community. People to get the hell out of here. Said most Mexican restaurant. No. Shit. You be right at home here in San Antonio, Noble. And Mexican restaurants on every corner. But that's funny. It's funny. You mentioned Kevin and he just sent me a message. He just sent me a message right when Dwayne mentioned him, letting me know that they got there safely. I'm like, dude, I know. But what else y'all want to talk about? Let's see. This here is about, if y'all ain't talking, this is only about 10 minutes. If we talking, this might be about 30 minutes. I'm not an indoor gal. Okay. All right, Noble. Coach, I asked that question because authors tend to write their stories with end already in mind. And with folks trying to tie Jesus to Emmanuel, it made me want to ask that after I read it. True. I understand. I get that. It's just that archaeologically, the belief and teachings of believing in Yahweh and the flood and Moses and all that stuff was something that we can find. Them already having that belief. Finding writings, even finding some of their writings is older, but we've even found some of their writings that are older than your New Testament stuff. But hold on. Yeah. What's the oldest Jewish writings? That doesn't really, that's because I don't own a calendar that was in the 10th century. What is the oldest proof of the Tanakh? So the Dead Sea Scrolls are 3rd and 2nd century BCE. So this is what 200 to 300 200 years 300 years before the Jesus, before any of the Jesus writings. And they try to put some of these Jesus writings around 59. No, ain't none of that shit was written before 70. This is not a nub. You know, nubs all are 60 ring gauge. This is like a 48 to 50 ring. This is 48, 50 ring gauge. This is the La Angelina. This is my wife hand rolls. That if you contact me at masteringyou10@gmail.com, you can order some La Angelinas as well. If you just want 1, 2, or 3, they're $8 a piece. But if you order, or 4, but if you order 5 or more, then there's $7.50 a piece plus shipping. Oh, and since more people are here now, again, as a reminder, and I do this every goddamn show, so get over it. We're having our first annual meetup in San Antonio on the weekend of October 31st through November 2nd here in San Antonio. If you look down in the description, what you will find is the link to a free thinkers reservations at the Drury Hotel and Plaza in downtown San Antonio, where you have access to the Riverwalk at any time right out the basement door. But we will be meeting that Friday night at a location that has yet to be determined, but most likely be one of the many patio spaces here in San Antonio. It's free. There will also be a meetup at the Chinese Tea Gardens on Saturday afternoon, so Saturday around noon, which is also free other than the Uber drive to get you there. And another meetup at the hotel pool after supper in the Drury Hotel. The reason why we're choosing the Drury Hotel because of its centralized location, but also the fact that you will receive a free breakfast, snacks throughout the day, especially at lunchtime at the Drury, and a free supper buffet provided to you by the Drury Hotel. So please go ahead and click on the link in the description and join us October 31st through November 2nd. Although that is Halloween night on that Friday night, we are not having any costume parties, but if I know my wife, she will be dressed up in a costume. So if you felt like dressing up in a costume, you will not be the only one, because I know my wife will, regardless, because she don't give a damn if she's the only one in the costume. Oh, and for Sean, Wrath, and Tim, no, I will not be providing free cigars. All right, that was my commercial. I'm with you. I prefer to be outside as well. If the weather was not hell hot, I would do a lot of these lives outside. But hell hot don't work for me. I thought Enochian language was the oldest. So the books of Enoch were not even written until like the 3rd century, third, 4th century BCE. So there really isn't, this Enochian language is more of something that was made up. The Gnostics came after. I don't know if you're in response to that, but the Gnostics, they are, the Christian Gnostics are after 70 AD as well. Everything Christian is after 70 AD. There was no Christianity before 70 AD. 105 here. I don't know what that means. That's not, what area code is that? You got to tell me, what area code is 105? Oh, 105 is not a standard telephone code. Okay, I don't know what 105 means. I thought it was an area code. My bad. What the hell does 105 mean? My costume is my meat suit. Okay, I'm gonna tell y'all a little bit something about myself. I am a preferred nudist, but if you show up in your meat suit, you're going to jail. You're going to jail. But you probably mean the fact that just you is your just you. It's your costume. You don't dress up. But I just had to throw that in there. I can't be serious all the time. Oh, 105 degrees. Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Oh, because I did say it's hell hot. So there were no Gnostic Jews or Judeans. Yeah, they call them Kabbalists. They were more like your Jewish mysticism. That would be your Kabbalist of today. So there were Jewish mysticism. In every religion, there's always a mystical side of that. This is what I'm saying. This is why the esoteric Christian isn't all that special, because there's always a side of every religion or philosophy that deems themselves to see something bigger and deeper, some more inner knowledge and whatnot. Is just like there's Gnostic, to use the term Gnostic for everybody. There's Gnostic Buddhist, there's Gnostic Hinduism, there's Gnosticism is everywhere and everything. There's always somebody. Hell, all the people who, they almost like the conspiracy theory people. The 13 families or the Bilderberg group or all them, you just Gnostic government people. We're only going to have 91 degrees today here. Perhaps I should wait till October, but when you began your deconstructing, where did you start? Did you start with the origin of people or religion? Well, my deconstruction started with me trying to prove the Bible to be correct. So all the different things that the Southern Black churches were teaching that was wrong, I was trying to correct those things. Like what is actually an eye of a needle, and the true understanding of the eye of a needle from the perspective of the people who, when they wrote it, that is this big ass gateway. You just got to take all your shit off your camel, and you can't ride your camel into the gateway of the city. So meaning that you, as a rich person, you can't be materialistic. But in the Southern Black churches I grew up in, the eye of a needle was a sewing needle, and so rich people went to hell. So stop trying to become rich. That was the beginning of my journey, trying to teach correct Christianity. But then the more and more I started to delve deeper into Christianity, the more things I found were not historical. And I started then understanding the political things surrounding it, the archaeological things around it. So I really didn't get to the origin of the religion or the people until I was about 10 years deep. She said, no, that's your birthday suit. Yeah, that's your birthday suit. Gnostic Hebrews and Greeks, and everybody got some level of Gnosticism. What? I'm on 117 acres. I couldn't be on 117 acres. I'd be standing outside, butt booty ass naked. I love clothes, styles, but if you give me 117 acres of land, I'm walking around, connecting with the animals. See, and don't take it as a sexual thing. It's a thing of communing with nature. Every animal on the planet was born in the skin that they are in. We are the only ones, we are, well, one of the few that dress ourselves up, right? Other animals do dress themselves up during certain time frames for certain reasons, but we dress ourselves up. Like, like elephants put mud on themselves in order to keep cool. But we dress ourselves up so that we can live in other environments. The best way to ground is to ground butt ass naked. To get the frequency of the clothes off of you, hats and jewelry, and just ground with nature. It's the best. So I don't want y'all sitting up here talking about some Coach Ren trying to tell everybody to walk around butt ass naked. We should be able to. I try to scare away ginseng hunters. So people come on your land and try to get some ginseng. Where are you? At 105, you in Arizona somewhere? The deconstruction started in 2009. See, mine would have started in 80. Mine started in 80. What was that? No, yeah, 80. 1980. Right, it's like how people, the Illuminati and the Freemasons are the same, and they're not at all. Yep, it is more natural to be naked because I like the bare necessities, those good old bare necessities. About your worries and your strife. Yeah, man. Yeah, I watch cartoons. I like animation. So what? And I like musicals. What you gonna do about it? I agree with. I'm sorry. Somebody else's comment got me laughing. It's not yours. I agree that many people during the time of the Bible was given took the book literally because of the indoctrination, but like how Aberpike said in More of the Dogma. Uh, oh, the Bible was taken literally. Bible was taken literally. The Bible should still be taken literally. That's the thing that troubles me about it, because you cannot change how the Bible should be understood but when the author meant it to be understood a certain way. Damn, you in Kentucky and it's 105? Okay, that's a heat wave. All right, Charles Barkley. Sounding Charles Barkley-ish. Them thick women walking around naked. But everybody's beautiful in some sort of some form of fashion. who are some of the Black scholars that you retain the most information from? Don't ask me names, but I still retain a lot of information from the book Black Rose, White Justice, the ISIS papers. I swear I probably read the ISIS papers about 6 or 7 times. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read that about 6 or 7 times back in the early to mid 90s. What is that? That's Jock. Sheikh Ati Jock, I think, wrote that book. But that ISIS papers, I read that over and over again. I read Malcolm X a bunch of times, and other than the storyline, his messages I read a lot. So I would say Malcolm X, even though it was transcribed by Alex Haley. I probably read that book about 5 or 6 times. There's some other ones. You got me thinking because I haven't read a book in a long ass time. It's been at least 15 years since I read a book. You know, kind of like how spell check. I forgot how to spell because of spell check. PhD papers and YouTube threw me right off of reading books because I can get right to the information. I went over that the other day. Paul was not saying that all the stories of the Old Testament were allegories. He was just saying, I'm going to use this story about Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar as an allegory. He wasn't saying it was an allegory. He was just saying, I'm using this literal story as an allegory. But the esoteric people have taken that one thing out of Galatians 4 and transformed that into meaning it's all allegory. Okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. Oh, this same person. I'm not the only one. Thank you. I thought that was a great cartoon. No, that's not the author of the. Who is the author of the ISIS papers? Oh, yeah, you're right. I thought it was a dude who wrote that. Keys to Color. No, that's not the version I wrote. I read. That book cover don't look the same. Oh, no, it is. Now I see the book cover. Okay, what did Jock write? Because there's a book of his that I read quite often as well. Oh, not 80s. 1980 is when I first started deconstructing Jack. And his name is Jack. He put Jack up there. I ain't calling him Jack like a native thing. Yeah, 1980 is when I first started deconstructing. I was 9 years old. Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of Malcolm X speeches. Francis did write ISIS papers. What did Sheikh Atijah write? This is gonna kill me. Oh, is that a free download of ISIS papers? Hold on, because I lost my entire. Oh no, that's not a free download. I lost my entire library. When was that? Like 2010. Okay, y'all. Francis, she wrote ISIS papers. Why did I think Jock wrote? Yeah. What did he write? And you know what's crazy? I've always wanted I'm an Atlanta Hawks fan. Anytime there's been a player with the name Jock in it, I've always wanted them to draft that player simply because I like his book. I know it's a dumbass reason. All right, let me see what you wrote. Okay, I read the African origins of civilization. I read that one. I read Pre-Colonial Africa. Yep, African origin civilization. And I read the one that got myth versus reality. I didn't know he had a second one. The one that has the red cover with the stone head on it. I read his African history book. I think those are the only ones of his that I read. Looks like he redid that African origin. He's done new editions of it. He did multiple new editions of it. I don't know why I thought he wrote the ISIS papers. I read Destruction and I read the African Origin Civilization. Those are the two main books of his that I've read multiple times. I generally will read a book at least 2 times. Some books I read more than that. Like the Kabbalion, I probably read about 60, 70 times. But like I said, haven't read a book. Oh, my wife thinks she's funny. She had told me that y'all was talking about temperature earlier and laughing at me. She got jokes. Oh, he died in 86. I didn't even know that. Albert Pike said that morals and dogma for Freemasonry, that, said in Morals and Dogma for Freemasonry, there is one doctrine for the masses and another for adepts and priests. I think that's the same way the Bible is written. I'm going to say that there are people who get different things out of it. If you're in a powerful position, you're going to read the Bible one way. If you're in a oppressed position, you're going to read it a different way. I don't think it was purposely written for different groups of people. I believe this God was real. What God? Burned. Byrne decided it wasn't worth my worship, or my fear. Once I decided not to worship or fear him, I was able to think critically about the Bible, which led me to the conclusion that the Bible, God, is mythology. I get you. And that's what that's how a lot of people deconstruct. Oh, I mean, he wasn't a black man, but he had some black in him. But Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, read that book a bunch of times, and I think I have a graphic novel. I have the graphic novel of The Alchemist. I hope I didn't leave that book in Stone Mountain and that book got lost. But I don't think I've seen it since we moved from Stone Mountain. But I have or had, or maybe I let one of my kids borrow it, which ain't no telling where it's at now. But the Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and I had a graphic novel of it, which was so much better. That was a good book. That's a good book for an esoteric minded person, because Becoming the Wind is all about looking inside. Okay, let me be clear. What's a graphic novel? A graphic novel is like a comic book, but instead of it just being about 80 pages, it's an entire novel, whole storybook. It's 200, 300 pages. It ain't that big, but well, it might be 300 pages, 200, 300 pages. But it's just a comic book that's a whole novel. So you take something like Romeo and Juliet, and instead of it being just reading lines, it's got pictures. It's all pictures and thought bubbles and things like that. Did I hear about a Bible version written for Indians? Indians like in India, or Indians in Native Americans? And it made them keep. Yeah, I haven't heard that one. I haven't heard that one at all. I ain't reading shit by Stephen King. Something wrong with Stephen King. Stephen King crazy. Something wrong with that man. I don't often agree with Christians, but I'm gonna agree with this Christian. I'm assuming you're Christian. You believe in the Bible. Wait a minute. Someone who used to believe in who used to be in spiritual circles. There is no esoteric Christianity. Esotericism is a form of witchcraft, and there is no place for it in Christianity. The same goes for Christ consciousness. It's heresy. But isn't walking on water witchcraft? Feeding 5,000 people with a two-piece fish sandwich, witchcraft? Healing people, witchcraft? Casting out demons, witchcraft? All of it is witchcraft. All of it is magic, put it that way. All of it is magic. You just call witchcraft the things that don't pertain to your religion. But I agree. There is no esotericism in Christianity. It is a slave religion. It is a religion that is built on oppressed people reading it to oppress people, people who are oppressed reading it to remain oppressed, and thinking that they're going to get some, you know, shiny gold watch at the end. Now, there are some Black authors who do take advantage of the fact that most people aren't learned, and will take anything that's Afrocentric and be like, oh yeah. And I used to be one of those people. I ain't gonna lie. In the from about 84 till about 99, I was Black Power Ungawa. I was still caught up in the mentality of race, that race actually matters on a higher level. Race matters on our physical level because we have to deal with it. And if you're blind to that, then you're going to mess yourself up. But on a higher conscious thought, higher vibration, race don't exist. But I was, shit, you might have called me racist for a while. Now you could have called me racist for a while, because the white man was the devil. In those, from like 86 to about 99. I'm gonna say I started coming out of it around 95, but it took a while. His name is pronounced, yeah, Sheikh. I know, I want to say Sheik. It's spelled with a C-H, but it's Sheikh. You're right. Oh, wait. How to make a Negro a slave, a Christian? Mm-hmm. And I meant to say how to make a Negro a slave, a Christian, because that's all it does. Makes you into a mental slave. I don't remember what I read from Dr. Henry Clark. What is his book? But I remember reading something of his. How did they get a loving God from this book? By lying? No, but you get a loving God from this book by continuously saying that God is love and that his punishments are love and that his genocide is love, and you don't know the ways of God and God's mind is beyond your mind. So, but God loves you so much because he killed himself and sacrificed himself for you. And that's the greatest love of all, to sacrifice yourself. But how can a God truly sacrifice himself? Right? They never asked that question. How can a God truly sacrifice himself? Right? So I always give the example of this when it comes to a true sacrifice. Let's say my son committed murder, but I take the fall for it. And I sacrifice myself to go to jail for the crime of his murder. Now, because they say Christians will always continuously sin, then I'm continuously taking on his crimes, right? Taking on his sentences. If I sacrifice myself, went to jail for 3 days, got out, and now I'm in my mansion chilling, you know, and I'm walking around the earth and I'm helping people and saving people and all that kind of stuff, I didn't make a sacrifice. A true sacrifice is my son commits murder, I go to jail, I get 7 years in prison. He commits another murder. Now I got 14 years. He commits another murder. Now I got 21 years. He commits another murder. Now I got 28 years. He commits another murder. And now that's a sacrifice. I continuously take on the punishments every time my son commits a murder. And this fucker must be a serial killer at this point. But yes, I am consistently, and I got to call that boy today, but I consistently takes on his crime, his punishments. That's a sacrifice. Jesus, according to Christianity, is up in heaven sitting on the right hand of the Father, just chilling. Ain't doing a goddamn thing. He ain't taking on your sin. Because how can sin be in heaven? If the Bible, Christians teach that God cannot be where there is sin, it doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work. Yeah. And the group that can't think about anything other than their sexuality and race isn't enslaved. No, they're enslaved as well. See, the big trick is to make you think you're free, but you're still enslaved. And you just don't even realize it. And then you perpetuate your own slavery. See, it was harder to beat the shit out of the first. So let's use transatlantic slave trade, for example. The first one to get captured, and they getting their ass whooped in Ghana, and then getting their ass whooped in America to be converted over to Christianity. That's hard work. But once you got them, they will then teach their children purposely to be mental slaves. And then they will teach their children to be mental slaves. And then so on and so on and so on until you get to us, who's ever alive today. And they're still believing in the same oppression, mental slavery that was given to them by their parents. But that first one is the hardest one. But once you get that first one, now you've created generational slavery and they keep perpetuating it. So then you tell the poor white man, hey, you're white now. You're not Irish, you're not Scottish, you're not British, you're not Spanish or Italian or German or French. You're white. And your whiteness makes you better than these brown people. And then they teach their children, and then they teach their children and their children. You're a man. These women are nothing more than property. You teach your children, you teach your children, you teach your children. And the women believe it and the men believe it. And they continue to teach that same thing. And when somebody starts to go against that, you use anger. You use that mass of people to shut that bullshit down so that they don't disrupt the mental slavery that was initiated back in 1457, 47, somewhere around in there. Mormons teach we as whites, but disobeyed God and he turned us black. Yeah, yeah. According to Mormonism, and the cartoon of it is funny as hell. So you had Jesus and his brother Lucifer were sitting at the table, meeting table, and they wanted to figure out how they wanted to deal with Earth. And Lucifer wanted to force everybody to follow God and love him, but Jesus wanted everybody to have a choice. So the angels fought. The ones who didn't choose a side, the ones that fought for Lucifer, they turned to the demons. The ones who fought for Jesus, they turned into white people who were wholesome and delightful. And the ones who didn't take a side at all, they were cursed to be black. Everybody was originally white up in heaven of the Mormon God. So it's all right. It's fine. So that's their. So I was one of the people who didn't choose a side, and I came to Earth as the black man. The book is called God Against the Indians. Which Indians? Did I miss the comment that told me which Indians? I think I might have missed that one. Oh, I didn't see the debate between John Henry Clark won that debate. Mary came with hard facts that Afrocentrics don't want to hear. There was a debate between John Henry Clark and somebody named Mary, I'm assuming. Oh yeah, if you Google or go on YouTube and type in something like Mormon creation of black people, Mormon, where did black people come from according to Mormons, you'll most likely find that cartoon. You seem to think you're in the old world. You're more free than white people. We have higher expectations placed on us. We don't get academic placement without academic achievement. So let's talk about this for a second. You seem to think you're in an old world. Now, I will admit that the world today is better than the world that I grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Better. I will grant that. But are black people or people of color, especially black people, let me just focus on black people because it's different for Asians and different for Indians when they're Asian as well, considered Asians. It's different for people of other nationalities than it is for black people who we consider black. In this world today, as a black man, if I show up for an interview in positions like IT or engineering, it is often looked upon as you don't belong. You can't be this person, and you don't get hired as quickly. This is why most engineering firms you see are mostly white. Most of the high-paying jobs in the world are done by white people. You'll have a few black people in there because they are establishing a quota. They're fulfilling a quota. And the fact that we still have these quotas on the books indicates that there is still preferential treatment given towards white people. Now, you talk about academia. When you look at a school, say Harvard, Cornell, Wharton, the predominant population within those educational systems are white people. They had to be forced to allow black people in, and the black people that they do allow in are achieving academic success at a higher degree than most of the white people who are there. So it's like the cream of the crop of black people get to go to the higher learner places. Propaganda has told you and other white people that the black person with a 2.9 GPA gets into Harvard, and here's this white kid with a 3.6 who didn't get in. Hell no. That black person who got into Harvard had a 4 had a 3 GPA to get in. They had to be the best of black people that got in. I know a lot of black people don't like this because it feeds into the whole boule and the 10%, but that's just how this society is. That is still relevant today. Look at our military that I served in. How many black generals are there compared to the number of white generals? How many black colonels are there compared to the number of white colonels? How many black lieutenant colonels, majors, so on and so forth? The overwhelming number is white people because they get the preferential treatment. Banks are still redlining, and the fact that redlining actually exists still demonstrates white privilege. That white people have a better opportunity at getting loans. That white people own more property. I don't know what you've been looking at. Whose propaganda? But the numbers. This is why math is so amazing, because math don't lie. Math has never lied. The only time math lies is when you misuse it. make 2 + 2 = 5. When 2 + 2 always equals 4, no matter how you slice it. You should be able to see all the comments in this corner right there. So saying that there's a higher expectation placed on white people is a false sense that those white people who are in the highest levels of power and control most things, that's what they want you to feel. And I'm not making this, I don't want to make this political, but and understand, even though I don't care for the man, Donald Trump was brilliant in that he made the average white man, exactly what Lyndon B. Johnson said, he made the average white man, Lyndon B. Johnson said, if you make the average white man feel better than the best black man, the average white man will always vote for you. Donald Trump took that and put a little swerve on it. He made the average white man feel like they were being taken advantage of, that they were losing out to minorities, and that they were headed for destruction and loss of power. And people voted for him left and right. 2 times. They did it. And they want him to run for a 3rd time, which is against the law, but they want him to run for a 3rd time for that reason. When this man's policies hurt the poor white man or the middle class white man just as much as it hurt everybody else. But you don't care. You just don't care. And you're overly privileged and fake oppressed. EBT lobster dinners, eating opulent-free. Oh my gosh. Do you realize that there are more white people on welfare? There are more white people on food stamps. There are more white people who have government assistant housing than there are black people. Now, if you look at the statistic based on the number of people in the population, black people have a higher percentage, which means that black people are at a higher percentage in the lower incomes. But when you look at the numbers, 400 million people in America, out of the 400 million, how many of those people are on government assistance? Let's just throw a number out there because I don't know the exact number. Let's say it's 200 million. Out of that 200 million, you're going to have 150 million are going to be white. Just like in the prison system, there are more white people in prison than there are black people, but black people percentage-wise make up a higher percentage population of the prison system, meaning that compared to the number of black people in America, we are at a higher percentage in prison than white people are in prison, but yet there are more white people in prison. So that means more white people commit more crimes and are imprisoned for their crimes. We just had a higher percentage because we have a smaller percentage of people. Now, why are there that percentage higher? Because more black people percentage-wise are in lower income areas. Lower income areas create crime. There's always higher crime in lower income areas. So therefore, and then when you look at policing, black communities are policed at a higher rate than white people. Black people get sentenced at a higher rate than white people. Black people get longer sentences than for the same crime than white people. So it creates the illusion that black people are doing more crime, taking more advantage of the government and on government housing and food stamps and all those things. That is an illusion when white people are on there more so than anybody else. So when you can see through the minutia of the propaganda, then what you will recognize is that they are utilizing this in order to keep you in a position to be against black people or to have negative thoughts or emotions towards black people. This is the same thing that Pope Nicholas did when he started the transatlantic slave trade. It's the same thing that Pope Clement did when he made white people white, is by getting the masses of white people to do their dirty work. And that's all that you've been indoctrinated into that. You mean once great financial juggernaut city that you drove into the ground after getting the politicians that you elected based on skin color alone? Let me tell you something about all these great financial cities that you may not recognize. I'm gonna use my own home city as an example. Atlanta, Black Mecca, right? Black people from all over the country come to Atlanta because if a Black person can make it in Atlanta, they can make it anywhere. That's the mindset. Kind of like if you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere for everybody, right? But in Atlanta, and Washington, D.C., that's the Black mind. You can make it in those cities, you can make it anywhere. And then you look at the cities like Detroit and you say they've run it into the ground, all right? But and that's mainly how y'all focus it. You say, oh, Detroit, look at Detroit, look at Philadelphia. But cities like Chicago, Atlanta, D.C., New York, Houston, Dallas, they're thriving. Most cities with high Black populations are thriving. So this whole run it into the ground is part of the trick, the illusion. Now, back to Atlanta. When you look at Atlanta, it looks Black. Politicians, Black, right? A bunch of Black businesses, a bunch of Black people driving nice cars, living in nice houses, and so on and so forth. That's what it looks like. But when you actually drive around the city and you go to the poor neighborhoods, the overwhelming majority of the poor neighborhood is filled with Black people. When you look at who owns the land in Atlanta and Metro Atlanta, it's owned by white people. So yeah, you got Black people doing business, but they're doing business on white people's land, in white people's buildings. When you look at a lot of the Black people who are doing well, they have government jobs. And some of them are in STEMs because we've made great strides in becoming mid-management in STEMs organizations. So yes, you got Black people. But the people who own the land, the people who are actually running the bigger companies in Atlanta, not all your little mom and pop shits, but all the big companies in Atlanta, they're white. Atlanta looks Black. It looks like it's ran by Blacks, but Atlanta is not ran by Black people. Atlanta is ran by the land owning, business owning white man. And I mean male, man, as far as male, because the white women are just, they doing something, but they are the wives of these people, right? So if you say that a city like Detroit is ran into the ground, the people who own the land in Detroit are white. The people who own the biggest businesses in Detroit are white. So who ran it into the ground? Black faces. Oh, somebody just put it on here. Black faces in white places. That's all that is. But the illusion is created so that you make these kinds of statements. And government officials, and you know this. Wait a minute. Not what you said. You know this. You are smarter than you are showing us. White man from town. I like that name. You are smarter than you are showing us. You know damn well politicians, no matter what color, no matter what gender, they are controlled by the lobbyists, who are controlled by the big business owners and the landowners. They're not, the black and white politicians show up at your town halls, show up at your churches, they show up at all these places and they give a good speech. They have a job fair day, they have an entrepreneur day, they give great speeches and great performances. But come on, man. When they go in them halls of justice, supposedly in halls of justice and halls of laws, they make decisions based on who's giving them the money. They give speeches to get the vote. They make laws based on who gives them the money. And it is not black people that's giving them the money. It is the Koch brothers. It's Bill Gates. It's Elon Musk. And it's people that you don't even know. I'm here in Texas, and even though Heb, they call it HEB, but it's Heb. Even though Heb looks like it's all for the Spanish people, the Heb family, them white people, they do shit based on what they can get from the government. They finance the government. The newest member on the block, Bucky's, I think it's two brothers, and I mean white brother. They brothers like blood brothers. Them two dudes, I think it's the two brothers. It's a couple of, yeah, I think they're brothers, who owns Bucky's. They lobbying these Texas politicians to get the land, to get the get shit done. Hell, I'm going to Cigar International when I get off this thing, right? When I get off here in a few minutes, I'm going to Cigar International. Cigar International is a company that makes $40 million a year, over $40 million a year, because, you know, they don't always report their exact numbers. How is it that they are, and this is a Swiss, I think they're a Swiss company. They're a European company. How are they the only ones in Texas who can smoke and serve liquor inside their premises without being a private club? Because they paid off the government here in San Antonio to do so. So, nah, man. And you can't just find the one little thing and that's your whole argument. They graduated with a 1.0 Carmelo Anthony style. Everything is easy for you by design. Okay, man, look, you've been indoctrinated. You're going to stay indoctrinated. I don't come on here to try to convince people to change their mind. I just give you the information and you do whatever you will. But you do see how white man in town, is it in town or uptown? White man from town. Do you see how you and I and everybody else on here, when it comes to politics and economics, we all should be on team with each other. I don't know what your financial status is, right? But we should all be on team. But this line of thinking is what keeps us from being on the same team. And this is so, and please, I'm not trying to be rude, but there's a difference between ignorance and stupid. Stupid is when you got the information but you choose to ignore it. Ignorance is when you just don't have the information, right? By the way, you get paid millions of dollars with a ball once a week, 6 months out of the year. You have all kinds of opportunity. There are only 400 and some odd jobs in the NBA, since you used Carmelo Anthony earlier. But you have about 6,000 people trying to get that job. 460 people is what you're going to put as far as all of black people and how we get extra shit. We're just living life fantastic. Who owns the NBA? Who owns all the teams? You only got one black, I think Michael Jordan might be the majority owner, but you only got one black, if he is, one black majority owner. Any other owner that is black in the NBA is a minority owner and barely owns 2 or 3% of it. The owner of the Dodgers just bought the Lakers for $10 billion. White man buying it from another white man. Who owns the team? Who's making the billions? It ain't the players. And what does that matter when it comes to the average person? You got the San Antonio Spurs. You got 15 players on a team. A third, if not half of them, are white. What about the Boston Celtics? Half that team is white. So would you say the same thing about those white men who get paid millions of dollars to bounce a ball? Because the league isn't all black. What about all them white dudes who play baseball? They get paid more than basketball players. Do you say the same about them? So I can say, since all those white basketball players, and don't let me start talking about soccer. You know, the highest paid athletes in the world play soccer, and the highest paid ones of them are mostly white and Spanish. And when I say Spanish, I mean Spain, not Latin Spanish. And even though those Latin Spanish ones, most of them are the white Latin Spanishes. So who you got all kinds of opportunity. You got way more opportunity. You got soccer, you got tennis, you got rugby, football. You got more white people in the highest paid positions, because the highest paid positions in football, you know, is quarterback. It's mostly white people playing quarterback. You know, them linemen, especially that left tackle get paid big money. Come on, dude. Your argument is the argument of propaganda, when we should be on team to say that big business is controlling the laws of this country, the laws of this world. Big business is in control of it. And the overwhelming majority of that big business is white owned. And they are perpetuating the division that happens amongst lower high income earners down to impoverished people. And lower high income earners down to impoverished people should all be on the same team, because we're getting ripped. My business didn't get a bailout during the 2010s. I didn't get a bailout. I wound up having to sell my gym equipment and sell my gym. I didn't get a bailout, and sell a couple of my studios. I didn't get the bailout in 2010. But the big banks and investors, they got the bailout. So come on, man. Come on. Don't let that propaganda get you like that. Don't let it get you like that. You know. But hey, my cigar's been gone. And like I said, what's the temperature out there? Because I'm riding my motorcycle. And before it get hell hot, I need to mosey my happy ass on over here to Cigar International, because I don't like riding my motorcycle when it's hell hot. I know that's, you know. In 2010, no, I did not get any kind of stimulus or anything. Did I get stimulus like most people got during COVID? I sure as hell did. But the stimulus check that I got during COVID, from COVID, it's not even comparable to what the big white businesses got. Come on, man. Stop getting stuck in stupid. You stuck on stupid because you know this information. You know it. You know it. You know, hell, my wife and she gets mad about this. So I know I'm gonna get a text if she's still listening. My wife had to work during COVID, and she was considered, she's in the medical staff, and she was considered essential personnel. But they had no customers. They were just sitting there doing nothing. So she didn't get stimulus. I got stimulus. I did, because I had a business. But the amount of money that I got during stimulus compared to what some of these other people, like these banks got, and these pharmaceuticals got, these hedge funds, shit, man, please. Man, please. But hey, you know, Forrest Gump. Stupid is as stupid does. And here's the thing, dude. We can elevate ourselves out of ignorance by learning. We can elevate ourselves out of stupidity by stripping off the propaganda, right? And when you allow propaganda to determine your thought process, then you allow yourself to be enslaved by the very system that actually you're being enslaved by the very system that you think is supposed to be on your side. Okay, so you agree that they got more money than I did because they had higher costs. Exactly. So, but you tried to point out that I get a stimulus check as if that's something that black people got. You see how you tried to flip that? You know the information, dude. You just demonstrated that you know the information and how it should be correctly assessed, but you still choose to assess it in a way that fits the narrative that keeps us divided based on the fake idea that this freaking matters. This don't matter. In a higher thought, in higher consciousness, this don't matter, right? But we know that there are people who realize that most people are stuck on the stupidity that this matters. And so they continuously keep us divided because of it. Constantly. That damn mosquito bit the shit out of me last night. But so I got to go to Cigar International. Isaac, I don't know if you're still on here, but if you ain't doing nothing, meet me at Cigar International I'm going to leave here in about 30 minutes. I got to eat lunch first. Lunch that my beautiful wife prepared for me before she left the house this morning. So you guys, we will be talking tomorrow about all the different gods that the Bible talks about, all the different gods that are believed to exist in the Bible tomorrow, and some of the some of the heinous stories that are involved in this whole setup. Dude, just stop. Just stop. I'm not as held back as things were in the 80s and 90s. Things have gotten better, but you're still held back by this color of your skin. All right. When I opened my gym, the only reason they gave me a loan for the gym is because one of my investor was a white man. Right. And after I got the loan, one of the young ladies who work at the bank told me that she heard them say the only reason they gave me that loan was because of the white man that I brought into that room. So yeah. Anyway, and I'm pretty sure that happens often. But anyway, I'm done with that. So I will see you guys tomorrow when we have a conversation about all the different gods that people believe in the Bible. Look forward. We all, you never know where these conversations go on these lives. This is why there's always a title, but there's no telling where it's going to go within the title. So I look forward to seeing you guys who are going to come to San Antonio. Click the link, and I look forward to seeing you guys the weekend of October 31st through the 2nd. We're going to have a good time, even with those people who come who might be haters of what we're talking about. I guarantee that we're still going to have a good time, no matter what. All right, because it's mainly about us having fun and meeting each other, getting to know each other, vibing with our tribe. So I'll see you guys tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.